Well, good morning and welcome. A little equipment malfunction there. Welcome to all of you who are joining us online right now, and to those of you who will be joining us later watching the recorded service. We're happy you're with us as we celebrate the Holy Eucharist this day. Today we are going to celebrate the entire service of Holy Eucharist, but we will have the bread and wine blessed, and that will be sent out to people who have asked to receive it, and I will tell you more about that in a minute. But that's what all the little bags are that are here on the altar, the bread and wine that will be blessed during the Eucharistic prayer. On December 31st, 2010, I got on an airplane with 8 other clergy, 2 other Episcopalians, and the rest were Methodists, and we flew to Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was my first trip to New Mexico. We rented a couple of vans and then loaded up and drove to Santa Fe, where we saw the New Year in. And then on New Year's Day, we drove to Ghost Ranch outside Albuquerque, New Mexico. Ghost Ranch is a remarkable place. It is a huge, huge ranch that used to be privately owned. The family tried to give it to the Roman Catholics, and they declined, and tried to give it to the Boy Scouts. It was too big for them. But the Presbyterians finally took it, and so it's a Presbyterian church camp. Not like any church camp I've ever seen. Among the things that its claims to fame, one is Georgia O'Keeffe had a house there and spent the last years of her life painting her art there. If you've ever seen the movie City Slickers with Billy Crystal, the ranch house that is in that movie where they gather before they start their trail drive, that the exterior of that house is still there on Ghost Ranch's property. Well, our reason to go there was to spend some time first with John Philip Newell, who's a writer who's written a lot about Celtic spirituality. And we did. We spent time with him and gathered around the fireplace, cozy fireplace. We get up in the mornings, on those January mornings, it was 4 degrees. Very often we would see evidence that animals had been outside the space where we were staying, the house we were staying in. Great time with John Philip, a really powerful time of learning and praying together. Then we went back to Albuquerque, and we spent 2.5 days with Richard Rohr. Spent 2.5 days with Father Richard, just the 9 of us, at the Center for Action and Contemplation. I have to tell you, I was not familiar with Father Richard until then. But ever since that time that I spent, I have been a faithful reader of his daily meditations. Every morning I read them as part of my prayer time. And I've read some of his books as well. He's a powerful speaker, not just a good writer, so one of those annoying people that's talented in more than one way. But the thing, it's not so much about his talent as a speaker, his talent as a writer. It's the substance of what he has to say. What I have found again and again as I have read Father Richard's writings and have watched videos of his, what I have found in those is that I am both comforted and challenged. Things that I believe are affirmed, and some of the things that I believe are challenged. It's this incredible experience of somebody I've only met once, of continuing to have my ears retuned, my eyes refocused, and my heart and mind open in new ways. Father Richard is a Franciscan, so he's very nature-oriented, as St. Francis was. One of the things that he says often that comes up both in his speaking and in his writing is a reminder, an invitation, an exhortation to be present to the presence. Present to the presence, capital P. That he invites us to do that in all parts of our lives. Like us, the Eucharist is important to Father Richard. It's part of his understanding of himself as a Christian, as a Franciscan, and as a priest. And Roman Catholics, like us and like Father Richard, believe in the real presence of Christ in this Eucharist. Capital R, capital P, the real presence. So we believe that somehow in what we do together, that there's this real presence of Christ in our midst. My understanding of that, in part, comes from a belief that when we celebrate this Eucharist together, that Jesus is here with us. It's not just some nice memory, like we have these wonderful memories of wonderful Christmas mornings or great family gatherings at a wedding. But this is like that moment in that room with his disciples that we commemorate on Maundy Thursday. It's like that moment comes fully into this present with us. That somehow that first supper, that Last Supper that he celebrated with his disciples didn't end there. It continues now. So we continue to participate in that. We continue to participate in that each time we celebrate the Eucharist. And so this moment is a continuation of the Eucharist that has been celebrated ever since. And we're participating with all those folks who have participated in it. And Christ is present with us. The thing, though, that needs to be reminded of, that I need to be reminded of, is what Father Richard reminds us of. That Christ's presence, as important as it is to this meal that we share, that Christ's presence is not limited to the experience we have in the Eucharist. That Christ is fully present when we walk outside that door. Fully present in people we encounter, in moments we have, in the creation that surrounds us all the time. Even when it seems like there's no way that Christ could be present, like all those hours I spent on I-65 going down to Alabaster a couple of years ago, that Christ is somehow present there in the midst of that. And what this Eucharist can help us do is, one, certainly experience the presence of Christ in this moment we share together. Both the few of us are here who have put the service together and those of you who are joining us via the internet. We share in that, recognizing Christ's presence in our midst. But if this is the only place we experience, then this experience is incomplete. So, this is the opportunity for us to retune our ears, to refocus our eyes, to open our hearts and minds, to open our very being in new ways, so that when we walk out, that we are more tuned in to the presence of Christ all around us, all the time. That's how I understand this to be taking place. One of the things I've learned, been reminded of, in this time that we have not celebrated the Eucharist. This will be the first time for me since February that I've received communion. Because I spent a couple of Sundays in Lent at Baptist Church of the Covenant in Birmingham as part of their School for Learning as one of the teachers at one of the classes that was offered. In case you don't know, Baptist Church of the Covenant is a fascinating church. In the 1970s, First Baptist Church voted not to let an African American family join the church, and the people who walked out formed Baptist Church of the Covenant over on South Side. And being with them and worshiping with them, I realized that even though we didn't have bread and wine, or grape juice and bread, that I realized that Christ was fully present in that worship. In the music, in the amazing sermon, that Christ was fully present. The point of all this is for us to remember that as much as we love this Eucharist, as important as it is to you and to me, that Christ is present in so much more. This Eucharist can help us be aware of Christ being present in so much more.